This episode is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website, portfolio, and online store. Visit squarespace.com/Toby to save 10% off your first purchase. And viewers like you. Episode is brought to you by...
Hello everyone and welcome back to another Photo Mishmash. I'm Christina.
And I'm Toby.
And this is episode 62.
Shattered.
Okay, that's not a very informative title, but...
Those who follow me on Instagram and Twitter know what I'm talking about. And, you know, I sometimes ask you all to come up with a show title. Sometimes I just come up with an incredibly appropriate show title. And it's Shattered. Because the GH4 LCD screen is shattered. That's the only reason. It still works though, and it's being used to film us right now. Not the LCD screen, the whole rest of the camera. It's sad, but accidents happen. I'll tell the very unexciting story at the end of this show. But this show is your weekly source for, or one of them, for photography, news, discussion, Instagram challenge. We mish and mash all of that up along with discussions of bits of products that we've been using, things that we love, things we don't love, and we share it with you on this Wednesday evening, or in some places Wednesday, Thursday morning. I'm Toby, photographer and educator.
And I'm Christina, I'm a full-time wedding photographer.
And...
This is our show.
That's what I'm supposed to say next?
I don't know, what were you going to say next?
I think we would have figured it out by now. Some people are like, 62 episodes. These guys should really figure it out now. Truthfully, we've only been doing the live show for less than 62 episodes. It went live some time ago. What we usually move into next is, in case you missed it, but what we've been doing more in front is to pick our Instagram challenge winners. You all might get tired of me hearing me saying this, but not as tired as I am in struggling to pick a winner each week because of the number of awesome submissions. And you don't win anything other than, hooray, a win, and I share out your winning and honorable mentions on the page, which, you know, is fame. You might pick up a few followers, but it's still, you know, we've given ourselves this task. And it is very difficult because you all are taking amazing photos. And I love to see the participation. Some people post, and Roger's been talking about this, trying to figure out why some pictures get lots and lots of likes and some others. It's all about your followers. But seeing people participating with thousands of followers and seeing people who are participating with 15 followers, and I don't think this is news to anybody, but it doesn't really matter the number of followers, or a number of followers doesn't necessarily directly equate with the quality of your work, and in some cases definitely does not. Kardashians, I'm looking at you because they're watching right now. Well, I mean, you know, there's reasons other people are followed other than what they, you know, the beauty of their photos. That's what I'm trying to say. We're off to a great start.
So before we get to that though, I just want to talk a little bit about sort of what people can expect in this episode. So we usually go for about an hour, a little over an hour.
Yeah.
And we talk, as you'd mentioned, about photography related things. We have some stuff that we are planning to talk about, but occasionally we will just think of something, or somebody will say something in the chat if you're watching live, that will bring, or we'll pay attention to and want to discuss. And yeah, and so we will be starting with announcing our Instagram winners, and telling you about some news, some releases, videos that were released this week in the channel, and suggest that you go watch them. And then after news, stay tuned for our announcement of the 50mm 1.8 winner. Yeah, and then we'll go through a little discussion about some things. Today we're going to talk...
Incredibly descriptive.
Well, today we're going to talk about Casey Neistat and his destruction of a perfectly is up for debate, I think.
No, I don't think it is. But let's, clearly.
A fine camera.
Stick around because we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, and then stay tuned for the after show, which only live viewers get. that is where
Unless I forget to trim it out.
the gloves come off and we talk about anything. I don't know.
Now, when you just motioned gloves came off, it didn't look like you were taking boxing gloves off. It looked like you were taking dainty, elegant gloves off. And they need to be
Which are the appropriate
boxing gloves.
Okay. All right, so let's get going.
Back to what I was saying. Instagram challengers, you guys are doing an awesome job. Thank you so much for participating. It's been a blast. And I'm going to share the person I picked as winner. And I might clue you in a little bit. No, I won't say this. Never mind. I'm just going to pick this person as winner.
That's your winner?
This is my winner.
Dun dun dun.
David. David's picture of red cedar bark. And I'm not sure, well, I think I am sure what does it for me in this picture. It is a combination of these craggy bark cracks that run in this zigzag pattern, mixing with, I think something was wrapped around this tree when it's young, or maybe its bark grows this way, with these smooth, gentle lines that go perpendicular to the craggy bark lines. I love it. And I think it's a fantastic image, and I really enjoy it. But again, it was difficult because there were some other really tough ones. I've got a couple honorable mentions. Just two. I'm going to limit it to just two. This is Civic-Minded Chris's gazebo. I believe it's the ceiling of a gazebo, Chris. And just really nice, intricate geometric shapes, repeating lines.
Hey, does anybody else feel like Instagram kind of looks like Flickr? Like the new look of their mobile site?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I don't know why. Anyway, go on.
Yep. And then my last honorable mention, although I could go on and pick many more this evening, is Photo Smarties. This is a building front somewhere. The fact that you did not try to capture this straight on, I think that would be the typical shot a lot of people would get. Let's get this building straight on. But you're at an angle which shows that this building has a little bit of curve. You leave just a little bit of space on the right and the left. And I really like it. So those are a few of the great images submitted that I want to take a moment and highlight. Christina, you have picked, for those who missed last week, we are each picking our own. And you picked as your winner
Butch's picture.
Yep.
This picture is really cool. It almost looks like it was maybe digitally drawn. It almost kind of looks like a vector. Like, it doesn't look real. The light is really, really nice, and I love all of the tiny little lines that you see. So there's really big lines, just showing sort of the veins, and then there's all of these little tiny veins. It's just a really pleasing image. My eye really navigates from the bottom to the image, kind of to the upwards to the right, and then comes back around. And it's also a really good monochromatic image. Because it only has different shades of green. So it's beautiful. So nice job.
Nice job, Butch. I see that here you took this with an inexpensive close-up filter on your Nikon D3200.
Well done.
I think it's interesting that we both picked organic images as our winners, which when you think of nature, you typically don't think of perfect lines. And these aren't perfect lines, but it worked well for both of us. You've got one honorable mention that I have already pulled up.
Yeah, and I just love I'm a sucker for interesting light, so that paired with the lines, I just felt like it was a really pleasing image to me. So nice job, Jeff.
Nice job, Jeff. And I have to go back over to the rundown real quick and grab that one. Whoops. Well, I'll come back to it.
Yeah, and I love this one because, again, it has really interesting light, and I love the grid, the lines that make this grid, and then it's kind of punctuated by these locks right above this person, which act kind of like a frame around her. So I just thought it was really interesting, a really cool perspective, and it sort of made me wonder, you know, what she's doing, how is she feeling, what time of day is it? It looks like it's probably, you know, pretty early in the day. It's pretty bright. So,
Yep.
yeah.
I think this nicely illustrates the rule of thirds is alive and well, even in a square format, if anybody didn't think it was. And she is so positioned so nicely in that bottom right quadrant, and in the locks too.
I love the locks. That's my favorite.
It's a very nice image.
Parts.
Great.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for submitting. And so next week's challenge is going to be texture. So
go shoot some texture.
Yep.
And share it with us.
Yep.
Hashtag on the screen, PRTV_texture for those listening to the audio version of this. And those who might not know, each week an audio version of this show does get put up. And now the audio quality is much better because we record locally. So, and you can subscribe on iTunes and leave us a review there too if you would like. Or through Stitcher or Android, blah, blah, blah of your choice.
Yep. So. And if you want to follow us on Instagram, our usernames are down below. Mine is just my full name, Christina Bernalis. And yours is?
Photorec Toby.
Yep.
Follow along and see behind the scenes and breaking news like shattered LCD screens as it happens.
Breaking.
Ah! Okay.
All right. So
now we move on to
this week. In case you missed it.
In case you missed it.
In case you missed it. So,
which is where we just get to rehash stuff we talked about last week. And it also allows me to, you know, because when I put a video out, folks comment on it, or even if they don't, I think about it and come up with different ideas, or, you know, so I guess the biggest video that went out in the past week was the preview of the Sony A7r II. And it also went out right after the podcast the next day. It looks on paper to be fantastic. This is this 42 megapixel 4K capable in the body. And somebody, Craig, I think was asking, what does that mean, in body capable? Are other cameras capable of out of body experiences? Well, like the Sony A7s is the perfect example of not in body 4K. It can only shoot 4K when you connect it to some type of external recording device like an Atomos unit. So, it means that you don't have to buy anything extra expensive, and you don't have to cart around anything and have a cage where things are attached to. You just push the button and you're shooting 4K in it. 42 megapixel in-body image stabilization, 4K, and the big news that I think has us most interested and most excited is that the early reports of shooting this camera with a Metabones adapter and Canon glass is the performance is excellent. Very, very good. In my preview video, I mentioned jumping ship, as in maybe we'll leave Canon, jump off the Canon ship, and swim on over to the Sony ship. And I've been thinking a lot about what that would mean seriously for us to do that. If we could continue to use the lenses we love and still get good performance out of them.
Oh yeah, I'm out.
You're out?
Yeah.
In
with Sony, out with Canon.
There are a couple things that make me hesitate just a little bit. And also, this isn't something we're doing tomorrow, although pre-orders went live today with the Sony A7r II, and I did pre-order mine. A little scary. That's a lot of money. I got to look around and sell some stuff. Non-broken stuff like the GH4. It's $3,200. I'm jumping around here, but when I look at that price, I look at it replacing or being able to potentially replace my 5D Mark III and my GH4. So two cameras becomes one, and slightly better than both of those cameras, possibly in some respects. So, but my big question or hesitation is, we talk a lot about making sure you are capturing moments. If we're using this as a wedding camera, we love having dual card slots. And even last week, we talked for a while, I don't remember if it was in the after show or not, about how often have we had corrupted cards that we couldn't recover from. We've never actually had that. We've always been able to recover at least something to work with, and even having to recover has been rare. I think about the Sony cameras I've reviewed. I don't remember her name on the McKay trip, but she had the Sony camera. She was so nice. And I tell you, I've seen more bugginess with writing to memory cards with Sony They do that annoying making a database, a recovery database.
Oh, right.
But I've still seen more issues of either losing a file, and I've seen this just enough on the internet to make me a little nervous to use this as the main wedding camera. But I
you got to be open-minded, and
well, I am. I'm being very open-minded.
well, yeah, I know. Well,
So.
you have to give them a chance.
Right. Yeah.
So.
That is probably my biggest. Well, I don't know. My other big catch is how well does this focus in low light? We can talk about all of this impressive focusing and when the light's good, but when the light gets crappy and low on the dance floor, you need a camera that does a good job.
Well, you still have to have a backup. So I feel like if I were to incorporate the Sony into my weddings, I would probably have that as my main camera, a film camera as my second camera, and then still keep a Mark III as a backup in case the Sony doesn't work, and to use on the dance floor during the reception. Because I don't, I mean, I care about those pictures, but I don't care about the dynamic range. I mean, I do care, but it's not as...
It's not as crucial as...
Like the portraits. Yeah.
That's a good point.
So
you would keep a foot still on the Canon ship and hope that they don't sail too far apart that you have to do a split. So I think that's all to say about the Sony. We're going to come back. There's a couple news stories I think we touch on, talk a little bit about it. So we'll come back to that.
If you're enjoying watching us talk about stuff, please give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, we just reached over 100,000 subscribers a couple weeks ago, so that was very exciting.
It was.
Yeah, so thanks very much.
Where's my silver play button, YouTube?
He wants a silver play button.
Actually, all I really want is for them to write me back when I have support, queries, or questions. Nothing back from them. Come on, YouTube. Bashing YouTube on a YouTube show. I just would like them to write back.
Yeah, they're a little bit bad about that. Okay. Couple more things that went out this week. If you haven't seen it already, or in case you missed it, a 5-star review talked about that awesome, really light carbon fiber tripod that we're both really loving using.
Yep. I'll just say, I'll be quick. I wrote a very tight script for that, and that video was much more scripted than others have, and I feel like there's a little pushback because it's very positive about the tripod. It is a fantastic piece of gear, and I guess the only downside is it's expensive, but when you compare it to other tripods in that class from Gitzo, Manfrotto, it's a good value. And this is going to be a lightweight, well-made tripod that feels like it's going to last for a long time. That's all.
There was also a Raw Doctor that went out this week, so go ahead and watch that. Show you a little bit of cloning out in Photoshop, so kind of how to bring your photos from Lightroom to Photoshop and then seamlessly right back after you do some fine tweaking.
Tease it a little bit more, because I was watching as I was editing, and you did this pretty amazing job quickly of taking a bunch of people, 2 people down on the train tracks, getting them off the train tracks, and then you realize that you have kind of you can't see the train tracks beyond them because they were in the way. So you then recreate the tracks off into the distance. Yeah,
and I did kind of a really quick and dirty, sort of like not super polished job of it. So
it shows you what's possible.
But yeah, so you could spend more time doing it and really clean it up. The last thing that went out recently was just a quick overview of the Lightroom dehaze tool. If you hadn't heard already, Lightroom released an update to the CC version. So if you have Creative Cloud and you pay monthly for the Creative Cloud subscription of Lightroom, Photoshop, or the entire Creative Cloud, you will have received this update, and it includes the dehaze tool plus a couple other things. So if you want to watch a demo of that.
Sorry, I was busy putting a bear into the chat because people have figured out emoticons, and I wanted to be part of the party. Yes, the dehaze. There's definitely some grumpiness out there of here is new features that people who purchase Lightroom 6, the standalone version, are not getting. And there's even a grumpiness on my video, not towards me, about not getting those features in Lightroom 5.7. Well, I mean, you can argue it always feels crummy when you've bought something fairly recently and then something very similar is getting new features and you're not. But I ask you, for 5.7 or Lightroom 5, I mean, you know, Adobe is a company. They do want to make money. And at what point should they, like, if you think they should give it to Lightroom 5 users, should Lightroom 4 users get it as well, like these updates?
Right.
So you got to draw the line somewhere.
Well, I think, you know, people are paying just a little bit more for the subscription service. So I think you can buy just Lightroom, like outright buy it for...
I think around 120, 130.
Okay. So actually the subscription
Probably
is
around
much
Black
cheaper.
Friday. Well,
Yeah, you could get a discount on it. So I think in the end, the best value that you're going to get is, and this is not to say that these are perfect, this is perfect software. By no means. There are lots of things that could be improved upon, but it's kind of the best out there right now. So, but that said, so if you buy the subscription service, I think you're getting a way better deal than just buying Lightroom outright, because you're going to want the features that are going to come next year. So, I mean, unless you think you're going to stick around with that one version for like 2 or 3 years.
I mean,
but that's kind of, I feel like you're missing out.
Well, are they really? So they can't...
I think they'll feel like it. I mean, surely they'll be able to edit.
Some people will, some people won't.
Okay, fine.
I mean, you know, Lightroom 5 does a fantastic job of editing your photos. There are some features you're missing out, but I would not call them critical or crucial features. And if it's working for you, don't feel pressured to upgrade.
You're definitely not missing anything with the dehaze tool, in my opinion. I mean, I think it's cool. It like helps you edit pictures really quickly, and it adds contrast and sharpness or whatever. But you can do that.
I will say that the Lightroom CC package, giving you Lightroom and Photoshop together for $10 a month. Oh, that's maybe why you're saying it's a good deal.
Yes.
I forget sometimes about Photoshop. That's a really nice combination, and that is everything you need as a photographer.
So I'm pretty sure you cannot get both Lightroom and Photoshop for that same amount separately. You'll be paying a lot more money and kind of losing out on the upgrades. So, okay. So we talked enough about that.
Yep.
Next, we are going to move on to news. And the first article on our news section was submitted by Roy. And it's from Gizmodo. Glorious night sky captured with Nikon's new astrophotography DSLR. So you guys probably remember a discussion of,
Go ahead.
Just
talk away.
You guys probably remember a discussion a few weeks ago of Nikon's new astrophotography camera. So here are some great samples of it.
I have to skip the ad first.
We're going to go over.
Thanks, Gizmodo. So this was the D800A. I'm not sure if you said that.
I did not.
Okay. The A being Astro. And this is Nikon's first time that they have made a camera specifically for capturing the night sky. Now, I'll be honest, these are nice pictures. And I guess we're getting a little bit more color and detail from the Milky Way itself, but these to my eye don't look terribly different than, or dramatically different from just shooting a nice, long exposure with a good camera, right?
Right. They don't look amazing, just the web versions and the whatever size was posted on Gizmodo, but I wonder if you could see them at 100%. The dynamic range on these is really, I don't know if they've been retouched or
I will
what,
say this,
but
I do see little bits of red in the stars, which is something that I knew that camera is, the modified sensors are much better at picking up the red wavelengths, so I think that's what we're seeing here. But you could certainly capture the Milky Way and the stars with a long exposure, decent camera. So you don't have to have this D8. Actually, sorry, it's the D810A, not the D800A. I said mistakenly. One thing interesting from here, though, is that he made this with this program called Starry Landscape Stacker that I'd never heard of. So when I was looking at this earlier, I clicked through. It's just $5. It allows you to take an exposure to capture the landscape lit by the stars. So that's usually a really long exposure, because the catch whenever you're out there shooting is to get good star pictures, it needs to be dark. Moon's got to be down, no city lights, no glow of clouds in the sky from city lights. So you need a really long exposure to capture the landscape. But then your stars aren't points of light. They are the long streaks from the rotation of the Earth. So this little program solves that issue by allowing you to sandwich two images together. Now, I think you could do this.
So is this like HDR software almost?
Well,
Except it doesn't really create an HDR looking image. It just
it's really just stacking
Okay.
or compositing. It's helping you composite specifically a starry sky and making sure everything is lined up nicely.
Okay.
That's all. I thought that was interesting. I'd like to try this sometime. It's only $4.99. Heck. So,
All right.
next news story.
So next, what we have
This is a sad story.
Yeah.
Close to us. I mean, it's not that sad, but it's certainly not a cheery story.
It's a bummer.
Yes.
So our friends over at Lens Pro To Go were their store, their, I guess, what would you call it? Their flagship.
They're a lens rental organization, company.
They got broken into over the weekend and were
Robbed
a lot of stuff was stolen
of a
from there.
huge amount of gear.
Yeah.
Maybe $500,000 worth of gear.
Wow.
We know one of the guys who works here. We shot his wedding not too long. He reached out, made sure he wanted us to make. We were going to talk about this anyway, but he said, "Will you please?" Because, and I'm going to be sharing all of the show notes down under this after the show. We'll have a link to their database of serial numbers because they had records of all of the serial numbers of the gear, and you just want to be on the lookout for that. If you are searching Craigslist for used gear, first off, this is a great place to always say, if a price seems too good to be true, it probably is. On all of this high-end stuff, occasionally, hasn't happened in a while, people write me and say, I got this guy, he wants to sell me the 70-200 f2.8 IS2 for $900. Nobody in their right mind sells a working copy of that lens for, actually I don't know, but definitely not as little as 900. Probably somewhere around $2,000. Maybe you could find from somebody really nice who just wants to get rid of it quickly, like 1,800 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, if it's too good to be true, you should probably think twice about it and make sure that if you do buy something used, that you check the serial number and maybe just cross-reference with their list.
There's a little bug flying across. What's really crummy is if you end up with stolen gear, it sucks. You are liable for, returning it, damages, and all of the serial numbers are written into the EXIF file when pictures are taken. So it was mostly lenses these guys took. I didn't think they took, or these thieves, they didn't take any bodies. It sounded like a lot of different gear, 500,000. So I'll publish that right down below. Take a look at that link, Lens Pro To Go. And they're good guys if you need rent. They're good guys to rent from. They ship all their stuff in Pelican cases, all nicely padded. I actually was reading something Ben wrote earlier, who works there, and said that they did a lot of testing to find the perfect density of foam for the perfect amount of protection.
Yeah, and they're great guys. They're just really nice, all around, fun people. So
that is kind of what differentiates them from other companies. Is they will talk to you. You all got me, but if you can't get a hold of me and you want to rent something, but you're not quite sure what lens, talk to those guys on the phone, and they will figure out exactly what works best for you.
Yep. They're cool people. All right. Moving on.
Let's talk about overhead luggage bins and the fact
let's talk about that
they might be shrinking. Or maybe the airline companies are going to keep them the same size, but just make sure that Now, I think we've all been on one of those planes where we've sat in somewhat amusement or bewilderment as some poor person tries to cram a gigantic suitcase into that overhead bin. And you are like, that is just defying the laws of physics, lady. You can't do that.
Why is it a lady?
Guy, person, sorry. The last one I remember is a lady.
All right, so you're envisioning a specific
like
person.
And then a steward person comes along, not a stewardess, a steward person. And sometimes they do magic and they just flip it around and slide it right in. And other times they're like, here's a claim check. And so it sounds like they're going to get a little stricter. Some airlines have already adopted this, but the new sizes are going to be 21 and a half by 13 and a half by 7 and a half. Or for our for the whole rest of the world besides the United States, that is 55 by 35 by 20 centimeters.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all
Where's my camera bag?
fine and good, but you know, they can put as many restrictions as they want. But the fact of the matter is that people are still going to come in with oversized bags, and they're still going to like try to cram them into the overhead compartment. And I find it really obnoxious because I try my best not to do that. But you know, some people just don't really have any respect for anybody else's.
Well, I think the most appropriate thing to say as part of this show is, if you are flying somewhere with your gear, make sure you've got a bag small enough to fit these new regulations when they're in effect with your airline, because you do not want to have to check your gear.
Was this photography, like camera gear specific, or was it just new restrictions announced? Okay.
New restrictions on carry-on gear.
I imagine that camera bag manufacturers will probably come out with bags that are acceptable for, you know, transporting your camera gear and still being able to fit in the overhead compartment. Like Think Tank has the airport. They have an airport line.
Airport roller, right?
And
they've just come out with a new line of kind of slimmer bags too.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
So I'm sure that it'll, you know, you'll have access to that. But yeah, I guess you should be really careful.
Right. You don't want to check your gear because it gets handled roughly and it might not make it to your destination.
Yeah.
Only check things that you can survive without. And for the record, I'm perfectly happy surviving without clean underwear. If it means...
Nobody needed to know that.
If it means camera or clean underwear. That's what I meant. Let me rephrase that. So, can you make it so I can see what they see in Wirecast? Can you put Wirecast over there, or at least let me see a little bit, so then...
There you go.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. Moving on to our next story. I didn't actually click on this one at all. The evolution of photography.
So, this article sort of goes through the different sizes of storage media, if you will.
Yeah, or our limitations on taking a picture. Right.
Yeah.
You know, and gosh, even 2,000 plus exposures, so much higher than that. It is kind of crazy to think about. And we've talked about this before. I feel like we had a really good episode. Not that this isn't, you know, back a little ways. When we talked about why that person shoots film, they had a list of reasons why they shot film, and we talked about how to apply some of those to how you shoot digital. And it's just, especially as a new photographer, or newish, you just start snapping pictures, and to be a little bit more thoughtful and to try to get your keeper rate higher straight out of the camera, or I guess keeper rate doesn't matter, straight out of the camera, out of Lightroom, it's the same, is a good thing to try. That's all.
Yeah.
I think that's all. We just need to look at this. Is there a lot of article to this, or is it just that picture? Yeah,
I think it's just the picture.
Yeah. That's all that it needs to be.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. And the micro SD cards, and it's just amazing. Amazing stuff. So
the next article is from Petapixel. Counterfeit memory card sellers are sometimes the ones getting scammed, and I'm not sure what this is about. It was submitted by Roy. And it sounds like there has been issues with counterfeiting compact flash cards.
Yep.
Which I had no idea about this.
Oh, you haven't heard about this before?
No.
This is a pretty common thing. It happens on eBay with some regularity, and other places as well. People will order a memory card. It will look like a SanDisk or a Transcend, but in fact, it is some knockoff brand, third party, that just got a sticker applied to it. And the horror story is people buy these, they use them, and they fail on them because their quality control on these is none, zero. And they could, you know, work fine for a while, and then when you least expect it, completely fail. So this actually happened to the buyer, who was then thought they were working directly with Transcend, the company, and then selling them, and found out that what he was getting from Transcend was actually not Transcend and third party. So this is where it's usually nice, although there's been some scary stories of even, them slipping third-party bad ones into the normal supply chain. But usually if you go direct to Amazon or B&H and you're buying SanDisk or PNY or Sony, you're going to be fine. And as cheap as memory is these days, it's really not a good idea to try to save a few bucks and buy from someplace like eBay.
Yeah.
I
mean, these are your pictures. Your pictures can be invaluable.
Yeah.
So
I will say, I have a PNY card, the nice 64 gig that seems like it's starting to go bad on me. I am getting write errors or speed errors when writing to it from the GH4.
I mean, I do think you have to replace your memory cards every once in a while, especially like we are heavy users of our memory cards. Like we use them a lot over and over. And
that's true. Solid state memory does have a lifespan, but usually that is in the hundreds of thousands of writings. But it does seem like this card is going bad. So.
Well, you don't want to take too many risks with that.
Right.
All right. Scott submitted an article about Leica cameras?
So the new Leica
Let's
Q.
talk about that.
I don't know what to say other than this is a very expensive Leica camera. Why do people get so excited about Leica? Can you tell us, Christina?
Well, I don't know. So they're rangefinders, I think, except this doesn't really look like a rangefinder. But, Leica, you get pretty nice glass with Leica.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I know that they make really expensive cameras. I think their cameras are really nicely made, nicely built, but I do feel like you are paying somewhat for a name. So
yes, there's the joke of you're paying for that red dot.
Yeah.
A good bit. But yes, the glass is great. This is a rangefinder style, but with a really nice high resolution electronic viewfinder. It has a full frame sensor in it, 24 megapixels full frame. It has a fixed lens, 28 millimeters f1.7, and it is image stabilized. So, a very nice camera. But we come down here where I think it's always really interesting. Almost every time Leica comes out with something, there is another camera that is basically the same thing without a red dot on it. And in this case, Sony's RX1R matches a lot of these specs. You've got a 24 megapixel full frame sensor in the Sony RX. You've got a 35 millimeter f2 lens. You do not have the built-in viewfinder. You do not have quite the fast burst rate, but you do get a pop-up flash, and it weighs a little bit less. Otherwise, they basically share a lot of the similarities. And I don't know off the top of my head what that Sony RX is, but I know it is significantly less than Leica's Q, which is going to retail for $4,250.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's a pretty penny.
Yeah.
If you value the way a camera looks,
But that's not even that good looking.
that's your opinion.
Well, yeah, but
Okay. Some people like the aesthetic of Leica. Some people don't as much.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just disagreeing with this particular camera.
This particular camera? Okay.
Yeah.
I had somebody comment on the Sony A7R Mark II preview and said, the lens and the camera need to look good together, and these Sony cameras look silly with the big Sony Zeiss lenses. I'm not buying it. Okay. You don't have to.
Yep. All right. Scott submitted another article. This is by Sony Rumors, Sony Alpha Rumors. It says, Hasselblad and Lusso looking to pay a lot extra for an A7R original. So why would they want to be paying more?
I don't know. I'm sorry, I didn't get, there were a couple articles that I didn't quite get to. This is very similar to that kind of Leica. Yeah, okay, same thing here. This is Hasselblad having basically a clone of the Sony A7R, but it's got the Hasselblad name on it, and it comes with very similar 36 megapixel full frame image sensor. Comes with a 28-70 f3.5 5.6 stabilized lens, but it does have this beautiful wood walnut grain. Can we show the screen for a second?
Yeah, is it going to be, you may have mentioned this already, but is it going to be medium format?
No, it has a full frame sensor in it. Which brings up the great question of, you know, we just decided that 35 millimeters now full frame. Why don't we say medium format's full frame? Because we say it's medium. It's just what people have decided on. It doesn't actually have any meaning anywhere. So, again, this is, does it say what it's going to be? The price? Where does it say? I don't know. It's only for sale in Lane Crawford and in selected camera stores in Hong Kong, Macau, and China. So it's for extremely wealthy people because again, oh, here it is, $8,000.
Great.
Where the Sony A7R can now be had for, what, under $2,000 I think, with lens or right around there. I should study up on my pricing. But it is pretty. Do you think it's pretty?
It's cool looking.
Yeah. But again,
It's like,
I would need to have more money than sense to say, I want to spend 3 times the price of another camera that does exactly the same thing just because I like this look.
yeah, totally.
So.
All right, so
You
another.
could hire a cool woodworker to build yourself a custom case for, gosh, what, like 1,000? I bet a woodworker would build a beautiful custom case for a camera for 1,000. Maybe it might be tricky. That would be a neat project.
That would be a cool project.
Okay.
So we already talked about the new Lightroom 6 update.
Yep.
So
One.
the dehaze tool was a big announcement, I think.
Yeah.
But also, it's supposed to be processing or starting to process Fuji images better.
Right.
So rendering, it'll impact the rendering. It'll make them render more
Reduce
clear
the
and
color
sharp.
blur.
And, go ahead.
Reduce the color blur artifacts when processing Fuji X-Trans RAW images. In collaboration with Fujifilm, we are still investigating methods to improve fine detail rendering and overall edge definition. Oh, good.
Yeah. And
just for the record, Lightroom 6 folks are getting the bug fixes and the updates to the supported cameras and Camera Raw. They're just not getting that dehaze filter and the black and white sliders, dehaze feature and the black and white slider, the graduated filters.
right. So the last thing in our news section for all of you quadcopter lovers is.
I said this to my friend who has been forever building his own little quadcopter just from scratch because he's awesome and geeky like that. And he said, awesome! This is not so much photographing. It has a camera, but it's not very high resolution. But this is for the person who wants to be able to drive their quadcopter around like a tank, then fly it like a helicopter, then drive it around like a tank a little bit more. That's all. It's only 99 bucks. It's hard to tell scale until you see it in his hands. You got to watch one of the videos. I'm not going to play the videos. But it's it looks fun. 99 bucks, but you go a little bit higher on this Kickstarter and you can get it with the first person view thing, which that is where it starts to get excited to me. The idea, I've had a little remote control airplane before. I've flown quadcopters before too, David's especially, but I've never owned my own. But that feeling of making something fly and steering it, that's a lot of fun. If you can then put on the first person view like some folks have and fly, that is getting pretty cool. So it offers that at like the $160 level, pricey enough for me to say, well, I just plunked down a huge amount of money on a camera that I need to figure out how to pay, so I won't be adding this to our toy chest anytime soon.
Definitely not.
But it's neat. Why? Why do you go put tank treads on it? Okay. Their argument is you can drive it to the spot, which saves a lot of battery life, and then fly it. So you could just also walk your quadcopter to where you want to fly it from.
Right.
But it's neat. It's neat. All right.
Okay. So we have some Sony articles submitted by Scott, but
Did you skip over the raccoon?
I did. I didn't realize that you really wanted to talk about that.
Well, I do. Who doesn't? Look at this picture. Look at this picture.
I don't know if that's like so relevant, but okay.
It is it's very relevant, Christina. It is a raccoon photographed riding on an alligator's back. The story is little boy was walking, startled the raccoon, which jumped into the water and clambered up on a alligator's back. Now, my first thought looking at this is it kind of looks photoshopped, or looks like, no, actually, sorry, not photoshopped, but staged, like a fake alligator and a fake raccoon. Look at that raccoon just standing there like he's looking out as they sail off into the sunset. And the other thing that bugs me is, where's the next picture? Why do we have only one picture? What happened next?
The raccoon continued to ride the alligator.
Please, really, that alligator was like, all right, yeah, buddy, where you going? 51st and 3rd?
I mean, that raccoon looks like
anyway.
He's owning that alligator. He does not look like he's like terrified in any way whatsoever.
Well, this is how I want to make this relevant. I want to say to you folks out there, if you ever get the chance, take more than one picture. No, but honestly, when things get exciting, as long as nobody's life is in danger, no humans, although I value animals as well, continue to snap photos. It's hard to do at times. There was an incident once where I got to watch a grown man tackle a unruly teenager who really deserved it, and it was fascinating. And I had my camera in my hand, and I wished I'd taken pictures.
Video.
Or video. It wasn't a video camera at the time, was it? Oh yeah, I could have taken video too. But I wish I at least, but I just stood there with my mouth dropped, because it was a pretty amazing scene. And take that lesson and continue to take pictures. That's all.
All right.
And what do you think? Real or fake? That's our first question of the podcast. Real or fake? Why do we only have one picture?
Yeah. What do you guys think? Tell us in the chat if you're watching live, and tell us in the comments if you're not.
I was chased by a raccoon once.
Were you?
And it was actually extremely frightening. Okay.
All right. So I think we're going to skip these Sony, because we've already sort of talked about this stuff. So yeah, maybe we'll leave it till next week. And
well, let's see. It was just the fact that with adapters, Canon lenses seem to be focusing just as fast. About that. We should have 20 full-frame E-mount lenses by 2016 for Sony. I'd say if these adapters, if the Metabones really is as good as they're saying, I don't care how many lenses Sony has, but it's nice. They have good lenses. Also mentioned that this shutter life of the Sony A7R II is rated at 500,000 clicks. It's good. It's professional level. It's where it should be. And from an interview, the rumor is that Sony is or not rumor. This information came out that Sony is working on uncompressed RAW files. Now, I mentioned this in the preview. This is one of those things where it feels like people on the internet have grabbed hold of it, and I don't know how much it actually matters, because the samples I've seen doesn't really matter that much. But the Sony RAW files right now are compressed a little bit. They are lossy, not lossless as typically you find in RAW files. So, and it says that they're working on the uncompressed RAW, and it will be deliverable through a firmware update. They also, this article, all these show notes again are down below, talks nicely why they settled on 42 megapixels. They said that was their perfect balance for them in allowing for excellent or good low light performance that is a improvement over the 36 megapixel Sony A7R or Alpha R, and some other things. But I tell you what, my takeaway from reading this was not that they are going to give us uncompressed RAWs anytime soon. They said, well, if the people want them, we can deliver that through a firmware update. So, and there's a petition out there that people are trying to get somebody to sign. Last I looked, I signed it because, yeah, they should be uncompressed, especially when you pay this much for a camera. But again, that doesn't stop me from not pushing the buy button, or the pre-order button technically today. So.
Okay.
Okay.
So now.
That was all our news. So now we have an exciting bit of announcement that people are sticking around to find out about. Big drum roll. Now, I only collect email addresses. I realized when I picked this winner, it's been a little while since I did a giveaway that I was in charge of running completely. I've just got an email. I don't have a name. So it's not very exciting. But I'm going to make this email into the name as best I can. Ready?
Are you guys ready?
KP,
the winner is
KP Blee. KP Blee.
How do you spell that?
Well, it's their email. KPBLEE.
KP.
I don't want to say what it's at.
Okay.
Because then everybody's going to email them. Well, I'm just going to email them. They got a couple days to respond. And they won the Canon 50mm f1.8 STM. If you are not, or if you are not the owner of KP Blee, I'm sorry. Thank you for entering. And we got, in 2 weeks, I think it is the MyOps trigger draw. And then there's a little bit of stuff sitting back here still too. So
You've been teasing that for the last 6 months.
I just got to do it. It's kind of, well, I got some incentive now because I paid for this stupid sweepstakes program. It's costed me money. So I got to get this stuff out and then be done with sweepstakes for a little while.
Keeping it real, you guys.
Hey,
keeping it real.
Transparency report.
Okay.
All right, so congratulations. Thanks all. This is a fun little lens. And if you didn't win, just go buy it through my links. It's a nice little lens. It's fun to have if you don't have a Prime.
Is it, are we talking about Squarespace?
Let's talk a little bit about Squarespace and just remind people that they can save 10% off their first purchase at squarespace.com/Toby. I see this question often. It was posted into the support group this week of a place for people to have a blog, share some photos. This is not exactly what was posted in that group, but close enough that I'm going to use it. And there are a lot of options out there. Some are free, some cost a lot, but what is really nice about Squarespace is it's all in one, which means that it is the software you need, it is the hosting. WordPress is all great and fine, but then you got to find a host, unless you're on WordPress's own site. That's fine. And, you know, finding uptime, you know, finding what they support. Do they keep their PHP updated? All of these issues make you want to pull out your hair, or you end up being an expert in areas you didn't want to have to be an expert in researching. Right. Oh, have I updated this? Oh, I need to put this spam protection in place.
Yeah. And I've heard from colleagues of mine who have Squarespace that their customer service is really, really good. So if you have an issue, you can't figure something out, you can call and they'll walk you right through your problem.
It's 24/7.
So
that's pretty awesome.
think that's, yeah.
Yeah, to have somebody to reach. And the two other main points that I love about Squarespace is the currency of the designs. They feel fresh, they feel, you know, current.
And unique too. They're not just a template. You can customize them to stand out and not look like everybody else's, which I think is really important.
Right. Yep. And all that's great, but then it's easy. So we're just talking about becoming an expert, but even when you like just build another site, even on something like WordPress, you have to become an expert in plugins and which one's going to work for you and tweaking the design the way you want. And Squarespace makes it really, really easy. We thank them for their sponsorship. Thank you if you go and use our link as a way to support us. Check out squarespace.com/Toby.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to move into our discussion section. And
it's brief, yeah.
It's brief, but today we're going to talk about this kind of quasi-viral video.
Well, you could argue that everything Casey does is somewhat viral.
Pretty viral.
Well, that's maybe not. Casey Neistat is a storyteller, lives in New York City, and he has recently started vlogging again. He's up to episode 80. He vlogs each day.
Which is unbelievable because that takes so long to edit.
Yeah, and he said they take him between 2 to 6 hours to edit many of them. I like watching because of the way he tells his stories often. It's a bit inspiring, and you know, I would like to be better in making reviews, a bit more storytelling-ish like that. I think they're great. But not everything he does is perfect, and I think we've watched a lot of them, and they start to feel a little similar. But again, you put out 80 of something, one after the other every day, you're going to run into that. I'm not sure who couldn't.
Right. They're all really interesting.
Share my screen for a moment, please,
I am.
Christina. Oh, okay. He posted this picture on Instagram and also on, it was part of his vlog. He was recording a vlog about telling a story, and he had a Canon 70D that gave him the error, movie recording has stopped automatically. And he apparently had gotten this error often. He was frustrated. He was done with it. And he took in a very dramatic fashion, he took the camera over to his floor, took an axe off the wall, and proceeded to hack the camera to bits. Now, he definitely got some...
criticism?
Yes.
To say the least.
Rightly so. First reason is, one, the lens had nothing to do. The poor little lens is an innocent bystander here. I think it might just be the kit lens. I don't know.
I hear the ice cream truck.
Oh, come on, don't tease me like that. We gotta move the show. What was the other date people could watch?
So for anybody who has no idea what's going on right now, there is a shaved ice / ice cream truck that comes by our house playing very tropical music to entice us ice cream lovers to come
What
get
I
some
like
ice
about
cream.
it is that you get to decide how much of the dyed liquid you put on your ice, because the little spouts are sticking outside the truck. And you just get the shaved ice cup and you go around and you can... One of the flavors...
So much sugar.
I think I already said this. It's called Tiger Blood. Let's move on. So, so the lens got hacked up as well. Come on. And then he pulled out and said, okay, I'm going to record the rest of this on my 5D Mark III, which also gives me this error from time to time. And then he says, don't ever buy Canon. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. I have seen this error before. I have never gotten this error when it wasn't the card's fault. And he pulled out a fast card. He was shooting with a card that should have been fast enough. But just because it's labeled, think back, folks, to our story just a few minutes ago. Maybe it is a third-party crappy card. Maybe the card has started to go bad. Who knows? But I almost guarantee if you try another card, you're not going to have this issue. Maybe this camera, his camera, had an issue. I think the chances of that are very slim.
Yeah, I mean, that has never happened to us, and we have recorded, a lot of footage.
It has happened to me when it's the card's fault. I have a slow Kingston that I can use and watch you watch the little, there's a little, it looks like a thermometer getting hotter and hotter, and it's a little icon that represents the buffer on the LCD screen, and you can watch it when a slow card. And I've had cards that are just fast enough, and you watch. It'll go up and then come back down. And it's really interesting with those cards to point the camera at some very detailed scene or to increase your depth of field, because that makes a significant difference in the amount of data being written to the card, and you can sometimes make it stop. If you record with the lens cap on, it's fine. It's like all black. I can do this all day long. Take the lens cap off and it'll stop. That's how I amuse myself, among other things. So yes, so I was like, all right, whatever, Casey, you can do that. He can do what he wants, but it's wasteful.
He does what he wants.
A day or two later, I was watching his show, and he had a new camera. I was like, ooh, what did he get? What did he get, a GH4? That would be a good camera for him. It's small. He skateboards with it. He bicycles with it. Nope. He got a Canon T6S. That's what he's shooting with. And he's like, I know, I said no Canon, but I got all the Canon lenses. And we're like, we looked at each other and we were like, what?
So actually, Giuseppe, one of our live participants, I guess, or viewers, one of our live viewers, just posted in the comments that the International Air Transportation Association has rejected the proposal of smaller luggage after protests in North America. So scratch what we said about the luggage, and
that's fantastic news. Thanks for sharing, Giuseppe.
That's great. Great news.
That's good. So we can continue to try to shove our extra large luggage in. No, I too, one, packing lighter is a goal of mine, as I've been saying again and again and again. And two, I'm one of those people where I get really nervous or really red in the face. I want my bag to go right in there and sit down in my seat like a proper person.
Yeah, no, because you just feel so like put together, like, I don't have any extra stuff.
Right. I get super nervous when it might not. And also, when we're talking about flying the Greece trip, we're going to be flying on some smaller planes. Some of the smaller planes have smaller overhead bins. So, okay. I think that's all I want to say about Casey. I just find it funny that he's pissed off at Canon. He doesn't like their gear, he doesn't like their bodies, but he went out and bought a new one because he's got the lenses. And I think that is a broader story
Oh, yeah.
of what's happening right now in the world.
So look out Canon, Sony's coming for you.
Yeah, I mean, we rehash this each week. And again, well, okay, you know what? Here, let's move into this discussion briefly of video coming up soon. I've been walking around like this a lot this week as I'm really trying to decide which camera to tell you is the better camera, the Canon T6S or the Nikon D5500. And, you know, the quality differences are not nearly as significant as I thought they would be. The D5500 pulls away in low light, and the D55 doesn't have an anti-aliasing filter. That should mean the images are sharper, but Canon's filter on there must be pretty weak because, and that's a good thing, at least as far as I can tell, because sharpness-wise, resolution-wise, they're very similar. Very similar. So, if you want to know which one you should buy, well, if you want a camcorder-like video experience, the Canon. If you want a little more, if you want a few more features packed in and you don't mind giving up the nice manual control, the Nikon's very nice. I discovered this week, apparently it was in the D5300 too, because I went back and looked at the manual. There's bulb mode, which is the mode that leaves the shutter open for as long as you press down on the shutter. It's very inconvenient if you don't have an intervalometer, because you can't really hold the shutter down without wiggling the camera. Even if it's on a nice solid tripod, it just doesn't work. Your maximum shutter speed is 30 seconds. So if you wanted to go longer than that on the Canon, or as far as I knew on the Nikon, you'd have to have an intervalometer that could let you do that, or hold the button down. There is a mode past bulb called T, and that lets you press the shutter button once to open the shutter, and then 5, 10, 15 minutes later, you can come back and press it again to shut the shutter. That is pretty slick and gives you some fun, super long exposure possibilities. And yes, you can set a 10-second timer so that you push and then you're not wiggling the camera. And yes, you wiggle it to shut the shutter, but on a longer exposure like that, it doesn't really matter. So that's neat. So there's some nice features in this Nikon, and the battery life is fantastic. But you make sacrifices in the manual control that you don't on the T6S, and even the T6i is a little bit more friendly for manual control.
Okay.
So I'll be saying more about those soon.
Yeah. Alrighty. So we can either move on to questions.
We've been blabbing for an hour.
Yeah. So now we're going to do a live Q&A. So Roy is in the chat collecting all of your questions. So if you want to post a question, now is the time to do it, and Roy will try to pick it up, and we'll try to do our best to answer it.
Yep.
So we have a few that we have.
Well, can we? Let's pretend that some questions are accumulating for a moment, and so can we just come back to my screen for a second?
Sure.
And I'm gonna get this. So I did this fun late painting. Oh, there's the broken. That's why this show is called Shattered, because of that LG G4. That is what we're recording with right now again. I mentioned this a week or two ago, but I wanted to highlight it again because it is turning out to be a really nice piece of equipment that I'm really impressed with for the price. And that is this 10-inch LED disc that is powered by Sony batteries. Battery life has seemed to be fantastic. The brightness. We're showing the thing.
See,
well, okay, here it is. And let's turn it on so you can kind of see how bright it gets. You used this for some shoots the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I used this for the light painting you all were just looking at. I didn't bring it to do the light painting with. I didn't think it was going to be dark enough in there to do light painting. I was recording a video outside, and then I was like, "Ooh, I could do this." But it's just really nice. I'm going to put a link to this down below. This is the 10-inch LED, retails for about $200. It is a generic, ledlights.com or something is their address. I don't remember exactly, but I think it's really nice. We've been happy with it, and it's going to be used at weddings this summer for some of the little rim lights and backlights that we do from time to time. Okay, now
we're moving on to questions?
Yep.
Okay.
So we can come back to this.
All right. First question was posted on Facebook. It's from Lee Buddy Bonus, who is in the chat right now, watching live. Thanks for that. Hi, Toby and Christina. Could you tell me what shutter speed works best when shooting video on Canon 70D? I'm still a little bit confused with the whole video shutter speed. So the rule of thumb is that your shutter speed should be double the frame rate that you're using. So if you're shooting at 24 frames per second, your shutter speed should be the closest to the double of that, which is 50. So you're shooting at 1/50th of a second and at 24 frames per second. So you set your camera to that. If you're shooting at 30 frames per second, then your shutter speed would be 60. Currently, right now, this video is being captured at 30 frames per second, so our shutter speed is 1/60th of a second.
No, we're actually at 24.
Well, our shutter speed is 1/60th of a second.
Oh, so that is a good reason, or like we could say that you can fudge it a little bit.
Yeah.
The general rule of thumb, that's going to give you the most cinematic look.
Yeah, and so what that means is that we are used to, because of the way that film has always been shot, movies have been shot in film at a certain frame rate. We're sort of used to the way that a moving picture feels and the transition from frame to frame. So it's something that we don't really notice because we're really used to it, and because we're focused on other things in the movie. But as soon as you dial up the shutter speed, what you are doing is you are capturing faster action. So you're gonna get this like kind of jittery type effect.
There's no blur to your subjects.
Right. And so what people say is that if you shoot at the appropriate shutter speed, that it looks more like real life. So hopefully that helps clarify that a little bit.
Right. And it can be difficult to do outdoors sometimes, to shoot at those slow shutter speeds. It's so funny, so how often we are struggling to get a camera with better low light performance, but then we go shoot video outside and we want to try to hit 1/50th of a second, and it is way bright unless you stop down to like f/22 or something silly like that. So that's where a neutral density filter comes in. That allows you to shoot outside, especially variable neutral density filter for video work is very nice. It allows you to shoot outside and keep those slower shutter speeds. I have shot with a GH4 at ridiculously high shutter speeds at times, just to kind of see how it looks, and you can notice the difference. There are some video, it's not a huge difference, I'll say that. It's not a dramatic like, oh my god, what's wrong with this video? It's a little like, something feels a little off, or that movement seems a little different. And yeah, I think that's all I'll say about it. If you need to go to 1/100th of a second, it's okay. It's all right. It depends on what you're shooting to some degree.
All right.
Yeah.
Next question is, at what point does anyone decide whether their photos are good enough to invest in a website? That's a great question. Oh, this is from Roger Hunt, who is also on the chat. So these are all questions that have been posted by people who are
I was
in the
so
chat.
close to picking Roger's glass as a line thing. It's fantastic. That's a great picture. It's another honorable mention.
Yeah. So I think you should just put yourself out there, Roger. I don't think that you should say, oh, this picture isn't good enough and you shouldn't put it up online, because you're always going to be better than you were before. So your pictures are just constantly going to continue to improve, and you'll update your portfolio with better websites. So one thing that you can do if you don't want to spend the money on a full-on website is spend a little bit of time, putting together a WordPress. It might be a little bit more cost-effective. It's not as easy drag and drop as Squarespace, but if you want to save a little bit of money.
Well, Tumblr's an option.
Tumblr, yes, Tumblr is a good option.
Or just, carefully cultivating your Flickr galleries. But I would step back and say, first off, what is your goal in creating a website? Is it to sell your photos?
Yeah, right.
And that is where I, say that people aren't going to buy them. The chances, not because you aren't a good photographer, Roger, but the chances of somebody just coming across a nice picture you've taken and willing to pay some amount of money for it is slim to none.
Well, I think if on a website, but if you're able to put your work and you want to sell your work and you're able to get into, there are lots of great independent websites where artists can post their work and people can buy like physical, reproductions of their imagery, and you can make a little bit of money on it. But yeah, I mean, in terms of just having a website, though, you know, you might just want to have, like, maybe Roger wants to do a few more paid jobs and wants to have his work.
That's if your goal is to say sell your service, not your photos, but your service, then I think it's worthwhile having. And I'm not dissing the idea of having a website at all. I think it's very nice to have your own little corner of the web that is yours. You know what resolution the pictures are going to be. You control how they look. There's a lot of value in that just for you. Yeah, and the first few times that I sold myself for, or sold, not myself. What?
Sold
this podcast just is this? Tell us more.
No. The first time that I tried to advertise myself as a photographer and sell photography services, I used my Flickr gallery as my portfolio. So I just sent them to a Flickr gallery. Yep. And that was good enough.
Fine. Yeah. I did hear something. I meant to pull in a news story. I heard Flickr is now compressing images a little bit more. Quality has...
I would use 500 pics. I think if I were doing it all over again and I were to start right now with all the stuff that's available, I would do 500 pics and I would do Squarespace. No, not Squarespace. I'm sorry. Instagram.
You need to say Squarespace.
No, Instagram or... well, yeah. So, and then after I make a little bit of money, the first website that I make would be with Squarespace. Right. And actually, that is true. Yes. I've been considering switching to Squarespace. If it wasn't because I spent a ton of money having my website customized, you know, I would definitely switch. But I've heard lots of great things about it and definitely agree with that. Okay. I should add a side note to that before we move on to the next question is, and I told this to Roger in the chat, but we are going to be working on a video on how to curate and create a good portfolio of photos. So just make the best with what you've got by using certain techniques that help you, you know, guide your viewer through your images in a way that's effective. So next question.
There's a mosquito in here.
Uh-oh.
It's not part of the show. Well, I'm going to read this question. I don't have a good answer for it. Ekim says, can someone explain the difference in the X-Trans sensors? So these are Fuji sensors. We just mentioned that Lightroom should be better at processing these with the new update. They have a slightly different process of being put together. Partly backside illuminated design, but there's some other differences as well that I'm not capable of really explaining. They are very good sensors. Fuji sells them as saying these are APS-C size sensors, but they perform awesomely. So that's their selling line. That's all you need to know. I don't think I really care too much about the sensor in a camera unless we're talking about Sigma's crazy Foveon 3-layer stack sensor, which produces awesome quality in good light, but in poor light is really bad. Otherwise, all of these sensors are basically excellent. Okay. John wants to know if they have a rum dispenser on the ice truck. They don't, but we got plenty of that downstairs. Deepak wants to know why the angry photographer hates Canon. I feel like I've heard...
Who is the angry photographer?
I feel like I've heard. I feel like I might even have watched a video or two of his. Is he the guy that did a sock puppet of Frono's photo cleaning the lens? Is that the same guy? Because I watched like a minute of that and I was like, this guy is just... His shtick is he's very angry. Well, I was listening to a podcast about Apple this week, and they were kind of bashing Apple. And some of these people are very much Apple fanboys. I think, well, people hate things for all kinds of reasons. I don't know where I'm going. There is this, Canon has been a clear leader for a very long time, and now it really feels to anybody who doesn't have any kind of bias that they're a step behind the game. And they are making some decisions, and maybe they always have, but now it feels very apparent that they're making some decisions based on protecting other lines of theirs, and it's frustrating as consumers because we say, give us what we want. Look at all these other companies giving us what we want. Yes, they have drawbacks too, though. Let's be clear. But it's part of that grass is greener on the other side. But So then we can bash them and say, God, you guys, you gave us these wonderful cameras. We all got hooked on these Rebels, and some of us shot with the early film Rebels and amassed a collection of lenses because you've made nice lenses, and now what are you doing? And the answer is nothing terrible, but they're making some decisions based more on marketing, it feels like, and being a little slow, or being slow to respond to market forces, as they say. That's why I think somebody might hate Canon. I don't know about the angry photographer. Maybe a Canon truck ran over his parents.
Okay.
Salman Amin, his 70D grip is getting a little white. Do we have any suggestions? Black
It's
permanent
getting
marker.
white?
Yeah, you know, the T4i, does folks remember this? The T4i was recalled because they used the stupid wrong chemical in some of the grips. And the grips would start to turn white, and also I think they colored people's hands a little bit too. Not as bad as it sounds, but maybe the angry photographer got his hands stained. I don't know if it's turning white. I don't know any good solution.
Yeah, I think permanent marker, you just get it on yourself. Don't do that.
I was joking.
Okay.
I was joking. Don't do that.
All right. AK Pets asks best Nikon lenses for small moving animals such as hamsters. That's very specific.
Wait, AK Pets, you followed me today on
specific.
Instagram or someplace that I clicked through, and it was very cute. That is...
this is just adorable.
I just have it.
In my head,
I know.
Images of cute hamsters.
Best Nikon lenses for
Somebody
small
chasing
moving
them around trying to
lenses.
take pictures of them.
Well, you know, my recent review of kit lenses, Nikon's kit lens is quite good. That gives you some flexibility in shooting. You probably want a little bit of a faster lens, a lens that'll open up wider. And I mean, let's broaden here. Really a nice lens for anything on the Nikon mid-range price, the 35 f1.8 or the 40 f2.8. Because the 40 f2.8 is their macro or micro, as Nikon calls it. And when the hamster's sleeping, you can get a really cute little picture of them. You gotta feed them little burritos like they do in those videos.
Have you guys, oh my god, have you guys,
Way too excited.
have you guys seen hamster eating tiny burrito? Maybe we'll queue it up for the after show. We'll watch it and critique it.
That's okay. Wow, we got a lot of questions.
So good.
Let's keep on moving.
It's a great video.
Miss giving me the rolling on sign, and you're talking about the burrito.
Oh, come on.
Steven wants to know how I shattered the screen, or the GH4. Well, honestly, I wasn't involved. The GH4 was sitting on the slider, the capture, the Nebo Motion Beyond. We were shooting some sliding stuff. Christina wasn't involved either. I got this other guy helping me from time to time, just recently starting to shoot videos. And one of the really nice things about those sliders is that they break down into a very small, compactable thing that you can take into the backcountry. And the bad is, I think it was left in such a way that the camera rolled partway down the slider with some force, and that's a good amount of weight. It hit the end that can unscrew off, and apparently it wasn't tight enough to stop the camera, and the camera bashed through the rail. This is what I imagine, because again, I was outside grabbing another bag. Bashed through the rail, tumbled through the air. This young man caught it as it was hitting the concrete and saved the camera, but the LCD made enough of when the LCD is flipped out to the side, it's pretty fragile, made enough of an impact on the concrete to shatter.
Yeah.
I wrote Panasonic today, and we're probably going to hold on to this until we get through next week's show, and then we're taking a little break from the live show because we got family coming. We're going to do a little vacation time. So I will probably send it in then because we can be without it for a little while. But they told me it's going to be 7 to 10 business day turnaround time for repair. That's a little long.
Yeah.
Canon is very good. It's one of those things where when you start to think about the whole system you're buying into, if you're using things professionally, there are differences.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you want to say something else?
I forgot because you talked too much.
Okay.
Next question.
How good is the weather sealing on the Canon 70D?
It's pretty good. You probably shouldn't douse it with water like I did.
I would never let it get directly rained on with real rain.
Yeah.
If it's misting
You
or
kind of
something.
tried that last year, right? With the 5D Mark III.
With the 5D Mark III, which is supposed to be fairly weather sealed.
Yeah, and you were so proud. You were like, look at me.
You bring this up more often than you should.
Well, it's because every time that comes up, I just get this image of you being so happy and proud that the camera was like, there were big droplets on it. You're like, look at this. And then...
Those groomsmen were impressed. They're like, he was out there in the rain. I was like, yeah, I am out here in the rain taking pictures.
Yeah.
Also, I brought my raincoat and my rain hat.
But then the camera stopped working properly,
yes,
so...
it's true. My method of keeping all of my gear protected when I'm not actually shooting with it is, instead of a strap in different weather conditions, I like to keep it in a little messenger style bag, no strap. And then I bring it out of the bag, take my pictures, put it back in. If it's pouring, I'm not going to take it out of the bag. It's protected in there, but I can still be out and about doing my stuff. And in between pouring sessions, then you can take your bag out.
Yep.
Deepak wants to know, A6000 or a Canon Nikon mid-range DSLR? Well, the benefits of going with a Canon or Nikon mid-range DSLR, I feel like, are shrinking by the moment. But that gives you a more manual, control-friendly camera with a huge selection of native lenses and other ecosystem things. Downsides are they're going to be bigger cameras, and if you're a person who maybe wants to bring your camera with you when you go out for the evening, I'd go with the A6000 because this is a much smaller, lighter camera that is always going to travel with you. Same image quality out of both of them. Focus-wise, I would give a slight edge to the Canon Nikon through the viewfinder. Live view, A6000 much better. Video, A6000 better to deal with. Battery life, DSLRs. So it depends on what you want. If you want to become a more professional photographer, Canon and Nikon, because of that manual control and that bigger ecosystem, it's an easier path into that. But you can certainly do it with the A6000. I find the A6000 still continues to be my top mirrorless crop sensor pick. Just get caveats in there. Crop sensor, mirrorless. It's a very good camera. You can take professional pictures with it, but you've limited yourself with some of your lenses, although it takes adapters as well, and focusing.
Stu wants to know if Instagram got a new layout, and it did, yes. It's now very sort of minimalist.
It's much cleaner.
Yeah, it's very clean, it's very white and bright.
We went from 5 images across to 3.
Yeah.
Which changes my plan. I have a plan. I gotta do it soon though. I'm not telling anybody yet.
And Roy adds that yes, bigger images and room for ads. I have been seeing a lot more ads in
the feed as well.
Yeah.
Mostly I'm getting LG G4 ads so far in the feed. And the ads have something that we don't have available to us.
Because you don't need any more ads.
I know. I love that camera. You can swipe on ads, right? You get you can swipe to see more. We don't have that. And I wonder if we'll ever get that. It's kind of neat. Okay.
Ricardo Van Buren wants to know Canon 70 to 200 f4 versus f2.8. What do you guys think? Is the extra bulk for the 2.8 worth it, or just spend the money on something else? It depends on what you're using it for. I mean, it sounds like a sort of like a non-answer, but if you're going to be shooting in low light a lot, you're really going to appreciate the 2.8. If you're not, if you're going to be shooting outdoors and all you care about is distance, then I would just stick with the f4.
Bocalicious-wise,
Bocalicious-wise, they're pretty much the same.
They're very similar.
So hopefully that helps.
Yeah. At 70, f4 and f2.8, you see a difference. Out at 200, you don't really see a difference.
GJ Bernard asks, I thought Tony Northrup's T6S video showed bulb mode.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry if you misunderstood me. T6S has bulb mode. It doesn't have the timed bulb mode, which, you know, that's cool. Nikon's cool. Good job, Nikon. So if you want to shoot longer than 30 seconds, you're either holding the shutter down, or you are
attaching something to the camera to help you trigger it. Cisco wants to know, is the new 50mm that much better than the old one that I should replace the one I recently purchased?
No.
Okay.
No.
Aaron,
not unless you can find somebody to take it off your hands easily.
Right. Aaron Wood, is there an updated firmware out for the A6000?
I think there is. That's all I know. I heard something about that recently. I feel like there's a lot of good firmware that's come out recently.
GASJ asks, X100S or XE2 for snap street shots? I don't know. So is that, what's the XE2?
XE2 is what Scott has.
Which is, tell me more about it.
I don't know.
Oh,
I've
okay.
not reviewed that camera.
Is it a Fuji?
Yeah, it's Fuji. These are both Fujis.
Oh, okay.
And the XE2, I believe, is interchangeable, and the X100S is not. The X100S is that nice fixed lens thing.
I would say that, without knowing much more, just knowing that one's interchangeable and one is not, the XE2 offers a lot of flexibility if you want to change lenses and use like maybe longer focal length later on. The X100S, I feel like it's kind of your traditional rangefinder type camera that people have been using for street photography for a really long time. So you're sort of, you have a very limited focal length to use it in, but I think that can also challenge you creatively. So you've got several things to consider there. Troy wants to know, I was shooting a video of a helicopter and the video plays back as slow motion. Why is that? Another guy was shooting the same thing and his is also played back slow motion looking. The helicopter blades look slow-mo. I mean, that's because of the frame rate. So you're only capturing either 24 or 30 frames, and the blades are rotating much faster than that, but you're only capturing like 30 rotations or 30, aren't you, like per frame?
Well, I don't know exactly how to explain that, but you are missing some of the speed. It's like a strobe light. Think about when you've got a strobe light on a fan, and especially if there's a couple cool science like experiments that you can do with this. And depending on the speed that the strobe light is flashing, it is allowing you to see the fan blade at different spots. And it may look like it's going slow-mo because it is going around so fast, but the strobe catches it here, and then maybe it's gone around 5 times, but then the next time the strobe flashes, you see the blade here. So to you, it looks like it's only moved a little bit. Exact same thing with a helicopter. The shutter or the frame rate is causing it to only capture at certain points, and then it looks slow-mo. That's cool. Yep. Yeah, I guess if you jacked your shutter speed up, it should speed up the rate that it's capturing that. Should have stopped when I was ahead of the game because my first explanation in yours was fine, but then I'm not sure about the shutter speed thing. That's cool.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Next question is by, I just lost track here. You guys have been posting lots and lots of questions. Thank you for that. Okay, Keely, I think. Keely. Hey guys, I love the show today. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Toby, have you found a workaround for recording 4K on the LG G4 without a time limit of 5 minutes? Also, how are you liking the phone as a portable camera?
5 minutes at a stretch is a long moment. It's nice. I mean, it's not with DSLR, and we did that 2 episodes ago. We did that little, like, you did such a good job on. You can clearly see a difference. And you can even see a difference versus like the little Sony RX100. But I have this with me. It goes with me places, always. A DSLR doesn't. And then when I need to take a picture with it, it is fine. And it is good enough. I'm quite happy with it. I really love the easy manual control. That's nice. And the fact that it just goes up to Google Photos, photos.google, when I'm done shooting and back in Wi-Fi range. And then photos.google presents me with a little animation or a little collage of the pictures. And I didn't do anything other than take the pictures. That's nice. So that's not actually direct of this, but it's just the fact that smartphones, cameras are really nice because they're always with you and they work well.
Okay.
So I doubt that there's any kind of workaround because maybe it gets a little too hot in there for the 4K. Is there a less of a limit at the lower? I have not played with that.
All right, we're going to keep flying through these because we got a lot of them. Thu wants to know, does anyone know if Magic Lantern has released a 70D version yet?
I believe it's still in early alpha stage, but you can find it on that 70D forum. I don't think it's listed in the drop downs. Corey has installed it and I think it's working. So, knock on some wood and install it. You should be fine.
Stephen Lane asks, when will the softbox and umbrella mishmash be? I've actually forgotten what that was all about.
Well, we were just going to do a little video showing the difference of softbox versus umbrella.
Okay.
We need to do that.
We'll plan on that.
Soon.
UDD12 something 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 wants to know, or he or she purchased the 70D 2 years ago. They mostly use it as a video recorder. Is there anything that you can recommend? Any accessory you can recommend that is not expensive?
To do what?
Yeah. We're just going to skip over that because I feel like...
All right, how are you recording audio? That is what I would say is what you should be looking at. Bringing in good audio if you're using it to record video often. Deepak
wants to know, is Flickr not so professional? I mean, I think it's different because you've got... The thing about it not being professional is that when you log on to it, you have all of these competing elements. You've got ads, you've got comments, you've got like so many things that are people who log in are looking at that are sort of competing with your photos. So I think from that point of view, it's not super professional because it doesn't, I mean, I think a good portfolio is super simple. Your images are the main focus of the portfolio and anything else is just complementary to it. So that's not the case when you're using something like Flickr or 500 pics or, things like that. So I think that's why I would say that it's maybe not professional because you've got so many other things going on and so people can't just focus on your images. They can go into like the, lightbox mode and just go through them. But when the first impression of it isn't like your brand, your stuff. It's like Flickr, they're branding their ads. And
you don't have control of that. I mean, if you pay, no ads. But somebody viewing your work, they might not be paying. So there's ads. Oh, wait, no, that's still... If you pay, do other people see ads when they look at your pictures? It's another thing I don't know. Let's add it to the list tonight. It's a long list of things Toby doesn't know. So, yeah, you don't have control of the space.
NYC0053, in your opinion, which camera has the worst motion blur?
Dr. NYC. That is really kind of it's not a camera. It is the shutter speed you're shooting at. There's what's called rolling shutter. Different cameras have different amounts of rolling shutter, and I'm gesturing moving a camera back and forth is when you see it. And because of the way the sensor reads, it's reading the top before it's reading the bottom, and so straight lines can get wavy as it reads back and forth as you move it. I don't know which one is the worst though. But motion blur really just matters what shutter speed you're choosing to shoot at. If you don't have any control of your shutter speed and you're shooting in low light with some of the point and shoot type cameras, you're going to get a lot of motion blur. Most DSLRs though, you could counteract that. The picture might be dark, but you can counteract that.
Okay, next question. Jeffrey is wondering if he missed the space picture of the week.
Can you share my screen for a moment?
Sure.
I was waiting until somebody asked. Now I forgot about it. And then I realized that I did save something this week. This week, this site, Astronomy Picture of the Day, 20 years ago went live. How many websites can you think of that have been around for 20 years?
None.
None. Yeah. Off the top of my head, maybe Amazon? Has Amazon been around for 20 years? No, probably not. This website has been around for 20 years. And today's picture is of the Pleiades cluster, which is something we can see here in North America. It's almost straight up in the sky. It's a very pretty star cluster. But you can go back through and see, let's go index. And they have it all indexes. And well, what's kind of funny is this website looks like it's 20 years old still.
Yes, it does.
But you know what? That doesn't matter. It's the content.
Does.
Yes, it does. They should go on Netflix. Netflix. They should go on Squarespace. Let's look at 2002's...
Oh, we're still looking at this.
Globular clusters. Okay, that's all.
Okay.
So there, Jeffrey. Thank you for reminding me. There is our astronomy picture of the day. Folks, feel free to any content, but especially interesting stuff like this that share out each week. Astronomy pictures of the day.
Yep, and we are on to our very last question. We're going to keep answering some more in the after live show. But the last question is from Newt.
It's not really a question. Oh wait, 40% discount.
And he wants to know if 40% discount on a Think Tank bag is a good deal. It depends which tank bag, but yes, that is a good deal because Think Tank makes nice bags.
They're very well made. I was thinking that again and again. I have an older discontinued model of an airport. I'm fairly abusive of those zippers. I grab and I will literally like yank instead of putting a hand in, and they just, no issues. No issues. No seams are funny. No zippers are funny. They work as good as the day I bought it used from you. How old is that bag? 4?
Yeah, it's pretty old.
4, which isn't terrible. It's not as old as the astronomy website of the day, but this is a bag that gets used repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly. We've got other Think Tank. You have a rolling bag that's not as old, and I have some other gear, and it's very well made. 40% discount sounds like a good discount. Newt!
Yep.
Go for it.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching this show. Join us again next week at 6 Eastern Standard Time for the next live show. If you want to, don't forget about the Instagram challenge. This week's challenge is texture, so if you are not on Instagram, get on Instagram and join our challenge. It's been really fun. Been really enjoying all of the submissions. And
maybe we'll even participate at some point.
Yeah, maybe I will this week.
Oh, she said it.
I said it, now I have to do it.
Let's see what's happening next week this time.
And if you want to follow either of us on Instagram, our usernames are on the screen right now. For more information, more rumors, more blog posts, more announcements, go ahead and visit photorec.tv.
And if you've watched the show and you thought, gosh, it could be better, you can help make it better by becoming a supporter. Photorec.tv/support. Not only will you help this show get better, but you can gain access to our Lightroom library, our library of Lightroom videos for beginners. Feedback continues to be fantastic about those. And if you've bought them or if you've gained access through the Photorec, I'd love you to leave an honest review, please, on that /shop page. But for just $3 a month, you can gain access to all of those. $5 a month, you can gain access to all of those and the support group where you can ask all of your camera questions. And we've got all kinds of brilliant people in there, all figuring this stuff out together, and they'll help you, and we'll help you.
Got a great community of people.
And there's higher
there.
levels of support as well.
Yep.
So thank you to those people in the chat room. Thank you to those people who are supporters. And we're now going to move into...
And if you haven't already, please subscribe and give us a thumbs up.
I gave them the motions.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks for watching.